lack of funding and devastating conflict, the health service is at breaking point. Imam Hussein Charity aims to help provide a better future for these impoverished patients, aiding them with finances for their prescriptions as well as dialysis of their kidneys. You can help our brothers and sisters with purchases of prescriptions for just £20, and for £200 help a patient with a dialysis procedure. To donate or for more information, visit www.imamhusseincharity.com.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, this is a live show. We do take in your questions. If you have any questions, please send them in via the WhatsApp number. You can call into the studio 0203 515 0199. I do believe on the screen there should be a QR code which will take you to a Linktree page, and over there's many forms of you to watch and also send in your questions. If you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube Live, just put your questions in the comment section, and inshallah the technical team will send it to me on my little iPad here, and inshallah myself and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer any of your questions. I'm your host Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Imamat. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you this evening?
Alhamdulillah, great.
It's good to see you, Sheikhna. It's been a while. Sheikhna, let's kick off, and the first question I have is, what did the narrations say about sending messengers and representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind? Now, Sheikhna, there are many like ideas and many terms and so forth when it comes to the hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. Whether that person is a Nabi, a Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or maybe he is an Imam and so forth. I mean, is it mentioned in the Quran? Is it mentioned in a hadith? Where do we get this notion from? Where does it come from?
إن شاء الله. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. I have the Kitab al-Kafi by Al-Kulaini rahimahullah, and the first question you ask about sending proofs of Allah Azza wa Jal or hujjah. Is it always, is it partial or full? The hadith speaks about this issue, and the narrator Abi Hamza narrates by the authority of Imam Abi Ja'far al-Baqir alayhi salam. He says, Wallah ma taraka Allahu ardan. By Allah, Allah did not leave any part of the earth. منذ قبض آدم عليه السلام, since he took Adam to the hereafter, عليه السلام, إلا وفيها إمام يهتدى به إلى الله, unless there is an Imam in which would guide people towards Allah Azza wa Jal. وهو حجته على عباده, and he is the proof of Allah over the people. In other words, Allah Azza wa Jal is always did not leave any part of this earth and time unless there's a hujjah from Allah Azza wa Jal, a proof from Allah Azza wa Jal. ولا تبقى الأرض بغير إمام حجة لله على عباده. And he wouldn't leave any part of the earth unless there is a hujjah from Allah over the people. In other words, the hujjah is before the creation, within the creation, till the end of the creation. There's a statement which they say, Al-Khalifa qabla al-Khaliqa. The Khalifa from Allah Azza wa Jal before the Khaliqa, before the creation. There must be first the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, somebody who represents Allah, and of course that was Adam alayhi salam, to be there first as a prophet, as a messenger of Allah, before the creation of human beings. And that's very important. So we don't have any excuse or any means of saying to Allah Azza wa Jalla that you haven't sent, a presenter or a wasi or a prophet to guide me. And that's why one of the reasons that we argue with the non-Shia, that how could you leave the wasi of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, i.e. Amir al-Mu'minin Imam Ali alayhi salam,
Yes.
and you go and you choose your own Allah's representatives in the so-called caliphs. This is Allah's appointment and not human beings' appointments.
Sheikh, also, when you look at the Quranic ayah, Surah Baqarah, verse 30, which discusses, it's the famous conversation between the angels and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to create, the earth. I'm going to create, man, and why he's going to, create bloodshed and mischief. Why are you doing so? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds, well, I know that which you do not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He specifically says, I'm going to create the earth to put my Khalif on it.
Exactly.
As in, the world is dependent upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Khalif, His Hujjah. Everything was created for that Hujjah. It wasn't, Allah created the earth and humans. They thought, I should give them, a Hujjah, I should give them a guide. It was the other way around. The guide was created, and then, everything else was created around it. Like you said, the concept of having a Nabi or an Imam or a guide, Hujjah, is the sole purpose of creation, and everything evolves around that. And there is not 1 minute on earth where there is not a Hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, inshallah, look after our Imam and inshallah hasten his reappearance when he comes, inshallah. Sheikhna, halal meat. When we slaughter an animal in the correct halal manner, there's many conditions. Some are Muslim to do the slaughtering, facing the Qibla, to say Bismillah and so forth. The blood that comes out and the blood that remains in the body of the carcass of the animal, is that deemed tahir or not?
When the animal is slaughtered and the amount of the gushing blood leaves the body of this, let's say, sheep and so on, whatever is left inside the body of this animal after slaughtering, it becomes tahir and remains tahir inside the body of this animal. Of course, when you wash the animal, for example, after slaughtering, removing any stains of blood on the body, that meat becomes tahir. And that's why when you go to the butchers and we buy meat, or even liver, for example, you see there's a bit of blood left. That blood on the liver or inside the animal's body, in the meat, is all tahir. You just have to wash it and eat it. Yeah.
Sheikh, we've got a question coming in from one of the viewers, and that is, Sheikh, I wanted to ask you that I have a few mental disorders, but whenever I think of something in my head, I get the answer on its own, out of nowhere, and it confuses me. Where do I get this? First of all, if you suffer from mental disorders, please consult your doctor and make sure you get the correct therapy and also medicine and medication that you require. Sheikh, sometimes, not just people with mental disorders, but other people as well, sometimes they sit, they contemplate about a question, and then the answer comes to them somehow. Islamically speaking, or from your research and so forth, where do these answers come from? Are they within us? Is it our conscious or our soul talking to us? Is our angels whispering something in our ear and directing us? Or is it just through the intellect and the aql that we eventually come to a conclusion and an answer?
As you have mentioned, after taking any treatments required for this purpose, because it's a mental health issue, so one should go back to the experts. Anyhow, any questions raised, one should go back to the source of the knowledge, Kitabullah wa itrati ahli bayti. If I have any issues, doubts, I go back and ask and do research, read, try to find the answers from these two treasures of Islam, the Holy Book and the progeny, alayhim salam. And I'll try to find the answer through this great sea of knowledge. Otherwise, I'll be getting, na'udhu billah, the answers from from the wrong sources and evil sources, na'udhu billah. So one should go back to the right source, the Holy Book of Allah Azza wa Jal and the prophetic hadith and his progeny as well. So you go back to these two main sources for any questions with this regard.
Sheikh, interesting question here from one of the viewers. Is playing animated porn games haram if we are sure they will not lead to fornication or such activities? Sheikh, let me explain a bit more on this. There are certain adult-themed games with indecent images and so forth, indecent theme throughout the whole thing. The person's asking, are we allowed to play it, even if it's not going to arouse me or some sort like that, or it's not even going to, cause me to go towards haram relationships and this and so forth? Am I still allowed to play these games which have indecent imaging and so forth?
One should avoid such images or games or animations, to view and see these, even if there's no arousal behind this issue, because that will lead eventually, if one continues to play or see or basically look at these images or videos, will eventually fall into the trap of the shaitan in anyhow. So one should avoid all types of traps of the Satan by distancing himself or herself from such videos or images.
Another question here from one of the viewers. Very good question, Sheikhna. This person is a medical student. Does purification bath become obligatory if, as a medical student, we touch human bones as the purpose of studying them? So as you are aware, when we study medicine, they do have examples of human bodies which have been given for educational purposes. They do touch, and they touch the bone, sometimes they touch the organs and the flesh and so forth. Are these najis? Do we have to perform ghusl after touching these dead bodies?
Yes, indeed, we have what is known as ghusl mass al-mayyit. If somebody touches the dead corpse of a human being, then they have to do ghusl, wajib ghusl for this purpose. Ghusl mass al-mayyit, touching that body of that deceased. So yes.
So for this student, would you recommend that they wear gloves if they're going to touch bones?
Yeah, anything to avoid touching directly, skin to skin touch.
Fair enough. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. From one of our viewers, I missed Fajr because I thought my menses was about to start. I have not done ghusl, but now there is no blood. Can I still perform the ghusl and fast?
So basically,
they assumed that it was going to start, but it didn't. Should they perform ghusl and carry on with their ibadat, or should they
if there's
not?
nothing, then they can just carry on with their usual wudu and salah.
Okay, there's no need for ghusl.
No, because she hasn't seen any signs, so she's still pure.
Fair enough. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Is it permissible to work in a shop as a cashier or stockist that sells groceries including non-halal meats, tobacco and alcohol? Sheikhna, I know serving pork and alcohol, whether it is serving, shelving, delivering, selling, giving a refund, no handling of pork or alcohol is allowed in Islam. So working in a grocery store, Sheikhna, where there's non-halal food and alcohol, are they allowed to work as a cashier or a stockist in that shop?
The problem, they're going to fall into the issue of selling that alcohol or pork to their customers, and that's of course not allowed. So if they can do shelving for other means other than the alcohol and let's say pork, for example, especially for the alcohol, that they can actually avoid working in this field and to work, for example, for other purposes. Like we have now giant supermarkets,
yes,
where you can work in the let's say in the oil section, I don't know, cornflakes section, other products.
Fruit and veg.
Exactly, yeah.
I think as a footnote, it's important to mention that your wages technically are not haram because there's also a lot of halal sales in that shop. So the wages are okay. It's the actual work and actions that you're doing, the amal, which is problematic. Sheikh, now more questions coming in. Can you please suggest me a book that will help me control my carnal desires? Sheikh, many books are available, and I think even with Orientalist and non-Islamic backgrounds where they talk about self-discipline and so forth. But people trying to control the nafs, what book would you recommend? Maybe it could be one on the soul, one on the nafs. Maybe it could be one on punishment and sin and so forth. What would you recommend for people to control their carnal desires?
I don't know if they speak Arabic or read or write Arabic, but if they do so, then Kitab Jamu' al-Sa'adat by the Naraqi, a great book to start, your mission towards implementing the akhlaq of Islam. A great book. If not, then there are, I think, English books written or translated, something to do with ethics in Islam and so forth. One can find out by searching the Google.
Inshallah. Sheikh, more questions coming in from our viewers. Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I work in delivery service and sometimes I get non-halal food, but the customer cancels the order and I end up with the food. Is it haram for me to give it away to poor people?
Initially, if it's a pork meat, you're not allowed to give it to anyone or sell it to anyone. Not permissible at all, even if not non-Muslims. So that's the first issue. If it's, let's say, beef or chicken, which is not halal, then this can be given to the non-Muslims who consider them as permissible for them. So in this way, you can get rid of this meat or chicken.
Fair enough. More questions coming in. I've got one from YouTube here. There we go. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Sheikhna. I'm currently a university student where I have met a girl who I like very much and would like to marry. Good luck. However, I am not financially stable. Is there any situation where having an appropriate relationship before marriage is permissible in this situation? Sheikhna, I mean, I guess a lot of people go through this, even after education and so forth, not being financially stable to get married. Islamically speaking, Sheikhna, is that really an obstacle for one not to get married? And secondly, for those who are not financially stable, is there any advice you can give them?
I mean, the Holy Quran is very clear. يَكُونُ فُقَرَاء يُغْنِهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. If they are poor, Allah would sustain them, would make them rich as a result. And we've seen, for the past, 20, 30 years, that I know many people who were even house students and they got married, and alhamdulillah, now, mashallah, they have more than one house and flat as a result. So, we should have faith in Allah Azza wa Jal. Yes, in the beginning, in the first couple of years, it's going to be difficult. You have to borrow money for this purpose to build your family life. And then slowly you have to pay back those loans and debts. And eventually you build your own business, your own work. And inshallah, Allah will sustain and give rizq to you, inshallah, as a result. So go forward, inshallah, and ask Allah Azza wa Jal for the rizq and the support, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. If we touch any impure part of the body with the intention of cleaning during ghusl, does that and so that water reaches it, does that invalidate the ghusl? I don't think there is any impure part of the body when performing ghusl. But I think it's about the private parts and so forth.
I mean, if there's najis, when the water comes, and usually that would make that part remove and tahir, and then you proceed with the ghusl to continue the ghusl.
So when you touch it and so forth,
touching wouldn't do any
it doesn't invalidate the ghusl.
It's just that you have to remove it first with the water,
and then begin the ghusl.
Wash it for
fair enough
to fulfill the ghusl.
Fair enough. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Can a female teenager go on school campus if she stays in full hijab? Her cabin will consist of only females and she's able to complete all the EPS. Okay, so a teenager here is going to go and live on school campus, which is very common with a lot of university, college students and so forth. Is she allowed to do so? She wears full hijab and the dorm she's staying in is like all girls dorms, and she will be able to fulfill her wajibat as well. Is this acceptable and okay for her to move onto the school campus to study?
Yes, indeed, if those conditions are met and there's no haram involved within this place, let's say dance, music and so forth, haram drinks and so forth, it should be fine. There's no issue with it.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum. Okay, this was in regards to the person delivering the food and says sometimes they cancel the orders and so forth. I don't want to throw the food away, and I'd rather it not go to waste. Also, I avoid all orders with alcohol. Is it permissible to deliver still, even though I may have to deliver non-halal food? So he's talking about his job now, delivering the food. Is it permissible for him to deliver non-halal beef burgers, chicken, Chinese food, whatever?
As I've said, if it's not pork, and the food is not halal, the chicken burger or the beef burger is not halal, this can only be served for non-Muslims. Otherwise, it's problematic.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Some schools in the West make it obligatory that their male and female students learn dancing. This dancing is neither accompanied by the common song, nor is it for entertainment. It is part of the educational curriculum. So is it haram for the parents to allow their sons and daughters to attend such classes? Sheikhna, in the West, dancing is considered an art. And there's different types of dancing, whether it be ballet, that's the famous one I know. I mean, there's different types of dancing which are considered art. And they are teaching children without the music and so forth. Is this acceptable as Muslims? Are we allowed to attend these classes?
In overall, I would not allow it, but one should speak to the school and to try to explain the situation, that this is not allowed in our aqidah and faith, especially if the girl is, let's say, she's in the age of adolescence, puberty, baligha, she is 10, 12, that's an issue. So they have to speak to the school to try to see if they can actually replace that class with something else, an IT class, let's say, I don't know, other subjects rather than this specific subject.
Fair enough. Question, Sheikhna. Assalamu alaikum. Is it permissible for women to dance in front of other women, or for men to dance in front of other men in a gender-wise segregated gathering? So we have gender segregated gathering. Most likely it's going to be a wedding. The men are allowed to dance with the men and the females are allowed to dance with the females. Also, let's take into account that not like there's different types of dancing, or like, for example, hosat and stuff like that. It's not really considered dancing. So take that into account as well, Sheikhna. Can the men, dance with the men and females dance with females?
Today's fatwa by most of the ulama, they say that it is not permissible for a male to dance in a male gathering, and also for a female to dance in a female gathering. The only exception is a husband and a wife. They can each dance in front of each other. So what we see today in the parties or in the weddings is an issue which is against the fatwa of the maraja. Let alone the issue of the music played, the DJ, I don't know, the jazz, whoever's played, that's absolutely haram. So sadly, I can say that most of people in the community, in the religious community, I don't say non-religious, that they actually ignore the haram issue when it comes to their weddings and marriage ceremonies, in which they play music, they dance, sadly. And even today we see that, there's a bit of mix as well. Men come in the venue of the woman and they dance. So that's even worse.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Rahmatullah.
What are my duties towards the a'lam, most learned, if I am not a muqallid of that a'lam? So I guess he's talking about the maraj and the faqih. What are my duties towards one if I'm not even his muqallid?
No, basically the ulama say that you have to follow the a'lam. If you know that this individual is a'lam, you must follow and do taqlid of this individual. So that's the duty, basically. Of course, if you've been given, you don't have the ability to find out who's a'lam, so you ask the experts in the hawza, the mawlanas, the sayyids here and there. They will tell you, for example, that individual is a'lam, then of course you're allowed to follow that individual based on your research.
Fair enough. This person has greeted us with Ya Ali, and we respond, Ya Ali Mawla. What is the hukum if I look at a chess board by accident, according to the narrations? So, it's very famous, people in the park play chess. Let's say you're walking and you look and you had a glance and you saw, oh, there's a chessboard there, people are playing chess, and you look away. What is the hukum here? Or, is this person liable for anything?
I've read something about looking at the chest, or the alcohol, I'm not sure exactly which one, that when you see those you curse Yazid, because he used to play with chess and drink alcohol. So of course, chess is, we have a nas about the hurma of the chess. I've read many times.
Yeah,
the hadith with regards to the
unanimous with the
forbiddenness of the chess, specifically. A great means of hadith with this regard. So one should curse the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jalla, especially Yazid, who used to play and drink as well.
Very interesting question here, Sheikhna. From one of the viewers, Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Is male vasectomy allowed if it helps improve sexual relations with his wife? Vasectomy is obviously a procedure which, stops men from ejaculating sperm and so forth. Islamically speaking, is this allowed? Because this technically is one of our, our powers. The famous hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, what is self-harm? Taking one's life, removing one of your limbs, or to take away one of your powers, whether it is the power of sight, the power of speech, the power of giving birth and reproducing. Vasectomy is a temporary stoppage to, reproduction and so forth. Is this allowed in Islam? And as is mentioned here, if it improves the sexual relations between husband and wife, is it allowed to be administered?
You see, this short-term contraception is allowed. All what has been mentioned medically. Let's say when you go to your doctor for a short term, but not for a long term. You cannot disable that organ or the womb of the woman permanently. It's not permissible. Short term, yes, you can actually use that types of tools which can actually avoid pregnancy for a short time.
Fair enough. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. In laboratories, blood constitute as separated from each other. When are the constituents said to be tahir?
We have one of the mutahhirat, one of the means of purifiers is the istihala, transformation.
Yes.
You transform wood to ashes.
Ash, yeah.
So it's no longer known to be as wood, it's ashes now. And so forth. That, if that actually took place, then of course it becomes tahir.
I see. A jurist have deceased that is forbidden. A jurist have decreed that it's forbidden for men to wear pure and natural silk. Is it permissible for a man to wear silk that is mixed with other materials if that clothing item is a tie? And is it forbidden for a man to wear the tie if it is made from natural or pure silk, in accordance to the opinion of His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani?
The Sayyid, Hafidhahullah, mentions that it is not forbidden, no. The one can actually wear that tie. And also the second scenario as well, about the mixed clothes, silk and non-silk. Again, if it's not to be known as pure silk, so let's say the majority is not silk, it's something else, that should be fine as well.
So it has to be below than 50%?
Ala kulli hal, you shouldn't say that this is pure silk. So it's just a mix, yeah. Could be 50%, yeah, could be.
And that's a tie or a shirt?
For the whole clothes, yeah.
Okay, any piece of clothing.
Yeah. If it's mixed, it should be fine. In which you don't call it as a pure silk.
I see. Sheikh Nas, is it permissible to take out a student loan which is given to the students for high school and university education? Needless to say, this loan must be returned with interest in some countries, and normally a student does not have alternative means to pursue education without this loan. Taking out a student loan and they have to pay interest on it. As Muslims, we don't deal with interest, but is it permissible in order for us to get educated and to earn a living and so forth?
If one is compelled, then of course there's no objection. And we mentioned this before about houses or flats on mortgage, in which you have to pay, 100% interest after 25, 30 years. Again, your first home, in which you need it, you don't want to get into the trouble of paying rents and issues with the landlords and so forth. Because you're compelled, then of course you're allowed. And the same applies to the using credit cards to pay interest and so forth. When you're compelled, then these are allowed. When you're in state of haraj, shadid, or difficulty, then of course you can. used. Otherwise, it's an issue.
Sheikh, if a drop of blood falls into the food that is being cooked while it is boiling, does the food become impure?
Yes, indeed. I mean, the whole food becomes impure and najis as a result. Even the pan, the saucepan, and everything, the spoon, everything becomes, which is in touch with that liquid boiling, saucepan, becomes all najis because heat does not purify the food.
Blood, especially the blood,
yeah. So yes, you have to throw away all that.
Yeah,
And this happens a lot in when somebody cooks for large amount of people. Sometimes they injure themselves with a knife or something. They cut their fingers, and a drop goes into that big saucepan. Yeah, so that's the issue.
You've got to throw it away.
So, yeah, it's an issue.
Wow. Sheikh, more questions coming in from our viewers. Sheikh, I wanted to ask you, is it permissible for a non-Sayyid to wear the green gatra, not the one that is worn by Sadat, the green chadar, but the green gatra which is worn by Arabs in their culture?
The problem is this now became a sign for the Sayyids, like the black turban. I can't wear the black turban because for the Sayyids. It's a problematic, it's an issue in which one should refrain from is better.
Is it because the urf has changed as well now?
Yeah, the urf, that's the problem with the urf. The urf is now, applying this, that whoever wears a green, then he's Sayyid. Who's wear a black turban, he's the Sayyid. It's an issue, ala kulli hal.
From one of our viewers, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Who was Mansur al-Hallaj, and what is the Shia view about him?
Yeah, Hallaj is one of those deviants in which I think it was in the time of the 3rd century, second, 3rd century, in which I think the Imam, Salamullah alayh, cursed this individual as well. Al-Hallaj is very famous. Sadly, we have sometimes ulama in which they deviate from the right path, in which they have served the community. For example, we have Ali ibn Abi Hamza al-Bata'ini. He was one of the Imams, Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayh, reps. And he had all the khums and shara'i huquq used to be given to him. But when the Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, he came over after the departure of his father, Salamullah alayhi, the Shahada. They stopped on Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam that, I think that the Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, yes, they have actually stopped on Imam al-Kadhim, Waqifiyya they called them, because they stopped on the Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, that he went to occultation, he didn't die. So these individuals, na'udhu billah, their aqibah became aqibat su', an evil ending, bad ending. And we always ask Allah Azza wa Jal for a good ending and not an evil ending, na'udhu billah.
So, Sheikh, we're going to go to a short break. Join us after the break in a short video from Imam Hussein Charity, and after that, inshallah, we'll continue our discussion here on Ahkam SOS.
Every day, communities across the globe are in need of safe sources of water for drinking, washing, cooking, rearing livestock and watering crops. Yet for these millions of people, this basic human right is out of reach. Imam Hussein Charity aims to build water wells in Afghanistan, providing fresh and clean water for those in need. Your donations could help us build a water well. Water is the source of life. Help us to provide our brothers and sisters with this basic necessity. To donate or for more information, visit www.imamhusseincharity.com.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. We do take in your questions, and you can send in your questions via WhatsApp. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section, or alternatively give us a call in the studio 0203-515-0199. There should be a QR code on the screen somewhere, and that will send you to our Linktree page, and on there will be different formats for you to watch and also send in your questions. So make sure you do so if you'd like the Sheikh to answer one of your questions. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikhna, I have followed the Ahlul Bayt since 2009. However, I took my Shahada in a Salaf community in 2006. Is it recommended that I reaffirm my Shahada declaring Ali alayhi salam as the rightful Imam? So this is someone who came to the religion of Islam 2006 and then came to the school of the Ahlul Bayt in 2009. Do they need to retake their Shahada?
This is something in your aqeedah, in your belief, not necessary to announce it, but I've seen many of the respected brothers and sisters, specific brothers who convert to Islam and then to the Wilayah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam as a result, that they come to the Shia mosques and Husseiniya and they announce that we are followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So it's something good to encourage others also to take the same path and route. Yeah.
Sheikhna, if one person has a lot of doubts in wudu, prayer, ghusl, etc., what should he do? Excessive doubt, Sheikhna, is one which, you know, today we call it OCD. Someone who's not really, you know, confident, or, you know, is always doubting themselves when they're, you know, performing certain acts and so forth. So, for the one who has many doubts, whether it be within the ghusl or wudu, or when they're going to fast or so forth, even we have hadith in regards to, you know, the one who has excessive doubts, you know, he should ignore the doubts and so forth. How does one try to, you know, compensate, or how does one approach such a situation?
I've mentioned the hadith a couple of months ago with this regard, that the Imam says to one of his companions that ask this individual who has waswasa, you know, in his worships, does this act comes from shaitan? He will indeed tell you that this is an act from shaitan. These are the whispers of shaitan. One should ignore the shaitan by what? Ignoring the waswasa. That's alhamdulillah, I did my wudu correctly. So just ignore it and carry on. Go to your salah and pray. That I finished, that I did my ghusl correctly. I'm not going to repeat it. Khalas. I'm going to go towards my you know, usual chores. I'm not going to repeat the ghusl or wudu or even salah. Just ignore and continue with your acts of worship. Don't repeat them. Unless you're certain that this is batil, of course. Otherwise, if there's a waswasa, then just ignore it, just carry on and try to defeat the shaitan.
Inshallah. Sheikhna from YouTube, Assalamu alaikum. What are the rights and duties of the husband and likewise of the wife? And what is the recommendation to maintain a healthy relationship? How do you handle what if one of them breaks the other right?
In overall, husbands should respect their wives. They have to basically offer them their wajib al-nafaqa. In other words, they are wajib on them to spend on their wives, to feed them, to clothe them, to put them in a suitable accommodation in overall. And of course, the other side as well, the wife should basically initially, there's two wajib for the wives. Number one, that they have to ask permission before they leave, and this could be done as a general permission, you know, that, you know, I'm going to leave. You don't have to ask every single day or for every single, let's say, leaving the house every time. So a general consent should be fine, and she can leave whenever she wants for shopping, to see her relatives. Yeah. And of course, the issue of the bed and the rights of the bed should be given.
The
also,
intimacy.
This marital state relationship with the husband. So that also is wajib to offer it for the husband. Of course, this should be done in a wise and
respectful.
And
I guess exactly. Needs consideration as well.
Especially if the wife, she works as well. So you can't expect from the wife every 2 nights, for example, when she's knackered and tired, she comes from work. So, I mean, one should understand the situation of both sides.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalam.
Interesting question here. Sheikhna, I went for Mashaya this year, and I've seen many ladies' washrooms where the floor is wet, basically najis. So of course we have to remove our abaya and then perform wudu. But for wearing it back, it touches the najis ground from the bottom, and we can't go outside without it. So the situation is: it permissible for us to go without abaya outside, but fully covered in hijab and clothes? Sheikh, there's two things here. First of all, she's saying that the floor is wet and therefore it is najis. Technically, it isn't, unless you know that that is either urine or feces or water mixed with urine or feces. Sometimes in the toilets, there's a lot of water used. The water does spill. Sometimes people are coming in every 5-10 minutes and washing the floor with water. It hasn't dried yet. Some people assume that the floor's wet, that's it, it's najis. First of all, Sheikh, can we clarify that if we go to a toilet and the floor is wet, do we consider it najis or not? And then secondly, if it is najis and the abaya touches the floor and so forth, what can these sisters do?
There's a general rule which says كل شيء لك طاهر حتى تعلم أنه نجس أو خبث بعينه, that everything is pure unless you're certain that it's not pure. Even the floors in the bathrooms and the toilets, even if it's wet, if you're not sure if it's najis, how can you, for example, say this is najis? They could have washed it just a few minutes ago by the cleaner, with running water.
Yeah.
So it could be washed by running water just a few minutes before your entrance to that place. So no, you can't say this is najis, I'm going to have to wash my abaya. And secondly, even if there was najasa, she still can walk with the najis clothes. It's just the issue of the salah, that should be pure.
Yeah.
If there's a najis, I just wash it. If there's a najasa here, I'll just wash under the running water. That's it. Becomes tahir, and I pray with that abaya. Should be fine.
Here's a good one for you, Sheikh. I'm sure you'd like this one. Assalamu alaikum. Which surah does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention Imam Ali as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's successor?
And overall, we have many
555, I think.
Ayat al-Walaya. إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا. That the Imam Salamullah alayhi, in his salah, he gave away his ring to a poor individual. So that is of course a clear sign that the authority of Allah, وليكم الله, Allah has the authority. ورسوله والذين آمنوا, those who believe. And of course, Sunni Shia scholars have agreed upon this issue that this verse is to the issue from Ali alayhi salam. So, of course, some of the complainants they came after this incident and they tried to give away the rings, but no ayah were revealed on them as a result. So it's very important for the one to pay attention to these ayat, that we take the tafsir from the right source. And alhamdulillah, the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt is very clear. We don't have to really dig and go through and find out. It's all there mentioned in our books and in their books as well.
Excellent. More questions coming. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhna. Where does the boundary of qasr start? Qasr salah goes up to, I forgot what it's called in Arabic, the hud, the boundary. Hadd al-tarakhus, that's hadd al-tarakhus. And that is only 13 miles from the boundary of your city, I believe. So for us in London, we use the M25 motorway as the boundary of London. Anything outside isn't considered London. So 13 miles from there, that will be the Hadd al-Tarakhus, and then from there 13 miles in one direction, and that's where the qasr starts. Yes or no, Sheikh?
What you've mentioned is about the journey that makes the one to pray qasr and break his fast. But Hadd al-Tarakhus is when you don't see anymore the houses or the walls
of the city,
of that city that you're leaving. So about 5-6 kilometers from the boundary of that city when you leave, in which you can park somewhere, eat if you're fasting, and make your salah qasr as well. Hadd al-Tarakhus.
MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. The question is, bear with me, it's right here. Is it permissible for an individual to sell £1,000 for £12,000 of the same currency to another person as part of a selling or lending transaction? So if I have £1,000 worth of US dollars, let's say it's, today's rate is really bad, but it's probably around $1,150. Can I sell that for £1,200? So, it's charging extra.
To sell the same currency is not allowed with this difference. That's going to be riba. So it's not permissible. But to exchange to be fine. I pay £90, take $100. That should be fine. The currency is different, but if it's the same, then that's no issue. One should avoid it.
Okay. Next question, Sheikhna. Can I perform sajda in salah while resting my hands and arms all together on the ground?
That is allowed, but with karaha and discouragement. So one should avoid it, but as I've said, it's not part of the salah invalidism talat. One can actually just put their hand palms on the floor. That's the best way, as we do usually. So try not to rest your arm on the floor, but that wouldn't break your salah anyhow.
Okay, Sheikh. Now I've just got two more questions here for you. Assalamu alaikum. Which marja did Alama Tabatabai follow?
I have no idea. Very difficult to answer.
Was he a marja himself? Then they don't follow.
Yes.
If he's a marja himself, he wouldn't follow another marja.
If he's a marja, then...
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Second question, is the crying over Imam al-Hussein mustahab?
A great mustahab. We have even a hadith which says that, try to read Kamlu Ziyarat, the best source for the Imam Hussein's mourning and azah and so forth, and ziyarah specifically. That a drop of this cry,
a teardrop,
Imam Hussein would actually turn off the fire in Jahannam.
I think that narration is found, it's narrated by Imam Ali alayhi salam through Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, probably in Bahar al-Anwar. But yeah, you're right, that a teardrop for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein with true sincerity is enough to distinguish the fire of hell. MashaAllah, what barakah with Abu Abdullah. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Thank you to all of you for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. Myself and the Sheikh will be back on Wednesday, 7 p.m. here on Imam Hussein TV. If you have any questions you'd like to send in, please send them via the WhatsApp, send them via Facebook in the comment section, or YouTube in the comment section. If we didn't answer your question, we do apologize. Inshallah, we'll get another opportunity next episode to answer your questions. Join us then here on Imam Hussein TV 3. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
I think it's everyone's dream to work and serve the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam.
Working with this project allows us to contribute back to the community.
Our main objective is to bring Imam Hussein to every household, or to take people to Karbala.
Producers, cameraman and editors all synchronize to capture, inspire and bring you closer to Abu Abdullah.
Working here is an honor and a privilege, yet nothing compared to the sacrifice of Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
Pass on the lantern of Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
Why should you support?
Why should you support?
Why should you support?
Imam Hussein TV is our Husseiniya to the world.
It's an open university to learn theology, history, law, Quran and many more sciences.
Many rely on our channel as they have no access to any Husseiniyyahs or any mosques.
And they have no access to any community events nor scholars, and they solely rely on our broadcasting.
Children in the West have so many questions to ask and are bombarded with questions about their faith.
We aim to educate youth and reverts in a thoughtful manner and language which is interactive, easily digestible and understood.
Our project is fully crowdfunded. We have no sales, no business, no profits.
If you do not support us, who will?
If we don't open a channel, who will?
And if you do not raise the flag of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who will?
We have been operating since 2016, and we have brought to you shows like Morning Barakah,
Ahkam SOS,
Her thoughts.
And the debate show.
We also have created many documentaries on topics such as the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
Miracles in Arba'een,
our non-Shias visiting Karbala,
And most importantly,
And most importantly,
we bring you Karbala live.
Karbala live.
Karbala live.
Karbala live.
Labbaika ya Hussein.
When a person cries for Imam al-Hussein, this tear that comes out of the eye is an expression of the love and the mahabba and the mawadda for Imam al-Hussein, which is in the heart. Therefore, the tear is an expression of this firmly deep-rooted love that lies in the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the emotion of love so powerful in that if it is manifested through a tear, this tear has the potential to cause revolutions that will cause earthquakes and bring the thrones of the tyrants crashing down to ash and dust.
With more and more victims of war and poverty, the Middle East has seen a surge in patients seeking medical aid. Iraq alone has 2.4 million people without access to any form of medical assistance.